Before we start today, I'd like to give a quick thanks to Urinating Tree for giving me the go-ahead to use this Haters Guide format and make what I envision a Rocket League Haters Guide would look like. If you're into real sports and sarcasm, he's got you covered. Big ups, Tree. So the RLCS championships are right around the corner. 10 days the best car soccer nerds across the world duking it out for the ultimate prize in Dallas in the August Texas heat. Questionable location, but I guess they owe it to them considering they got screwed out of hosting the Season 9 championships due to that fun thing from a couple years ago. Besides that, Worlds is back and bigger than ever, but who all will be playing over there? Let's start with the host region. FaZe Clan has put together quite the team over the past few months and are finally getting some greater results now that the current roster has had some time to mesh together and figure out their playstyle. Consistent finishes in 3rd or 4th place were certainly nothing bad, but now that they've broken out and had their first meaningful win as a team, that being in the 3rd North American Spring Regional, the threat of FaZe is now known throughout the land. When you have the mechanical genius of First Killer playing for you, quintuple tapping on established veterans and world champions, that on its own can get you far, but having solid support from Sypical and AJ rounding into form at the right time on top of that, and the opportunity is there to go extremely deep in this gauntlet of a championship. The Spring Major didn't quite go their way, running into a hot Falcons team and Furia looking to go far as well, but most are confident about a rebound going into Dallas. However, if this NA team can also rebound from a disappointing Spring Major, I'm sure FaZe would prefer not to run into them. Wait, pause for a sec. How did you get swept by Guild? I woke up on the 16th in time to tune in for Game 4, and I see Guild up 3-0 in the series and First Killer have a 4-1 lead and one's ripped away from him? Honestly, I'm going to call this one a fluke. Upsets happen, and because of how rare it is that FaZe don't go far in a tournament, finishing 3rd, 4th in this one, I'm comfortable chalking this one up to shit happens. That, and if Guild is their kryptonite for some reason, they won't see them in Dallas, so who fucking cares? The number 1 seed for North America belongs to G2 after a team renaissance occurred when they traded Drees to what was then Envy in exchange for Atomic on the 2nd day of the year. Nothing against Drees at all, and he's continuing to develop into an amazing player for Optic, but Atomic fits perfectly in their system, earning them instant results as opposed to the gradual ones seen from FaZe. The occasional high finish in 2021 turned into G2 making podium 5 times in 6 regionals, winning 3 of them, and winning the Winter Major in Los Angeles as a cherry on top. As mentioned in the last segment, a disappointing Spring Major saw them winning the first round in a 3-0 sweep, only to be reverse swept twice by Karmine Corp and Team Liquid, bowing out on the 3rd day of the tournament. Despite that, for Worlds, North American squads will have the luxury of doing less traveling, making it easier for the whole group as longtime veterans of the org JNSP in Chicago look to take their 2nd World Championship title, adding their names to a short list of legendary players. Just regroup, boys, and you'll be fine. Make this running out of gas thing a one-time thing rather than a habit. I honestly feel bad for Garrett. Keeping up in skill with any game for such an extended period of time is one of the hardest things on the planet to do, and having his land streak snap must have been worlds of pain, especially when most consider it to not be directly his fault. It's difficult to pinpoint anything specific, but it likely came down to a few things. Maintaining a winner's mentality as a team is extremely hard to do, and as other teams got exponentially better in such a short period of time, getting knocked down so many pegs was a punch in the mouth that's hard to recover from. Not being able to keep up with an influx of skill on top of the mental game ruined their spring split, with the only notable result being a 4th place finish in the 2nd regional. Luckily for them, very high finishes in this season's tournaments leading up to the Winter Major carried them to the 3rd NA seed and a guaranteed group stage appearance following Moist sweep of version 1 in the Spring Major. NRG is fully capable of getting hot and going on a good run, but would that be enough to get them near a title? I'm skeptical, but I would love to be proven wrong. So at the last second, Envy merged into Optic Gaming and went into the Spring Major under them, finishing 7th place after getting swept by Moist in the opening round and losing 3-1 to Furia in the 3rd round of the lower bracket. Mist and Turbo have been with the team since 2020 and won 4 regional titles with Envy during Season X, but they haven't found much success since then, with Turbo coming down to a substitute role in April alongside the young and improving Drees and longtime veteran Illusion. The current roster started their journey in the 1st Winter Regional, but have only cracked top 4 a single time since then, finishing 3rd in the 2nd Spring Regional. Mist has been a top-tier NA player for a while, but with Drees still developing and theories floating around of Illusion not enjoying the game as much, I'm worried that Worlds might be a tough time for Optic. Although with the championship-winning influence of Turbo on any team, you never know what could happen. The SSG boys are a fan favorite, and it's easy to see why. The energy and emotion of Arsenal and Reddles, plus a sweaty 15-year-old mechanical god in Daniel is a combination to behold. Speaking of Daniel, isn't it crazy that he's only been on Space Station for 6 months? It feels like he's done years worth of damage in his competitive career already, and Lord knows what he'll be capable of in, say, a year from now? While it's cool to think about, the present has a couple of issues, but let's define a couple of terms first. In my mind, ice and clutch mean two different things. In Rocket League, I feel like clutch is being able to keep yourself alive. When Space Station faces losing a life or elimination, the gears get going, but having more than a couple situations where you're facing a sweep to only then turn on the gas is unsustainable, and we still have to define ice. Ice is being able to finish the job and take down your opponent. Here's the issue. Space Station are 2-8 in Game 7s this season, one of those wins coming from a reverse sweep over Oxygen. They have incredible talent to go far and ride off momentum, but the Game 7 struggles could be what holds them back from finishing high. Chrome, however, is one of the best coaches in the league, as seen by how clutch Space Station can be, and if he finds a way to infuse that ice into his players during the break, Space Station will be fucking terrifying to play against. Break the trend. The top North American finisher at the Spring Major was V1, getting swept by Moist in the lower finals and taking 3rd overall. This finish saw them take the 4th seed from Space Station, but falling just 21 points short of stealing the group stage clinching 3rd seed from NRG. With version 1 getting hot at the right time and not having to travel as far to Worlds, they're a real dark horse candidate in the making. Veteran influence from Torment, who won Season 6 with Cloud9, Calm, the destructive maniac leading the RLCS in demos per game, and Beast Mode, their young star, who many already consider to be at least top 10 in the world. In the sports world, experience, grit, and star power are traits that lead teams to championships, and I wouldn't be surprised if those attitudes and playstyles lead to version 1 finishing high in Dallas. Keep an eye out for these boys, and don't be terribly surprised if they turn even more heads than they did at the Spring Major. As previously mentioned, all the teams so far have a decent advantage heading into Worlds, as they will have to deal with far less traveling than everyone else. It could be a coincidence, but taking travel into account, it's definitely worth noting that the host regions have taken home all 3 RLCS major titles this season. Also worth being said is that with a longer event, the group stage clinchers get more time to adjust to the jet lag, and those who can push through the early days might have the effect nullified by the time group stage and main stage come around. It would certainly be smart for our teams across the pond to show up a few days early, but what does Europe bring to the table? I'll go ahead and start off with what everyone wants to hear. That was fucking pathetic, BDS. Your domination of your region through the entire season leading up to shitting the bed on home turf so bad that you got swept by 2 minor regions. 0-6, not a single goddamn game was won, and during the Winter Major they finished middle of the pack, which is low for BDS standards. Regardless, BDS should absolutely not be counted out. Bringing in Seiko to make their main squad completely French smooths out in-game comms as they can all speak their native languages, and the individual talent on this team is likely the best in the world. Monkey Moon, speed, mechanics, and game sense combining to make who many consider to be the best player in the world alongside First Killer. Pick a trick out of Seiko's hat and he'll probably do it first try, as well as extra helping dominate whoever's on the other side of the pitch. It's hard to get much better than that, but this recent pattern of events reminds me of something. Let's hop back to 2019 and to a different sport. The Tampa Bay Lightning of the National Hockey League had just come off a record-breaking 62-win season, with many of their star players receiving trophies based on statistics and trophies whose winners were voted on by their peers. This unstoppable train had made decent progress in the playoffs the past few years, but were never able to get the job done. BDS's 7-8 finish in the Winter Major reminds me of Tampa's conference final loss in 2018, and as for 2019, God. Their first round matchup was the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team who barely scraped into the playoffs during the last few games of the regular season. A franchise who hadn't won a playoff series in the team's 18-year history. On these few days in April, the hockey world witnessed one of the greatest choke jobs in the history of sports as the Lightning were swept in a best-of-7 in the first round of the playoffs, the first President's Trophy winner to not win a single playoff game. But guess what happened after that? The next year they won the Stanley Cup. In 2021, they won the Stanley Cup again. In 2022, almost, but they made it to the Cup Finals and won 2 games, losing in 6 to the Colorado Avalanche. Go Avs, go baby. Nearly a dynasty after supreme embarrassment, and if we jump back to the present Rocket League scene, I'm terrified of what BDS could bring to Dallas, especially since they still do have a LAN title, but the present is here and now. Will they follow the same pattern as the Lightning? Nobody really knows until the games are played, but they do have a choice. Do they want redemption, or will they wear the title of LAN underachievers around their neck? I'll be watching very closely, and so will Mark by 8. I really struggled to put a finger on Dignitas. They had a really good fall split fresh off of requiring Scrub Kill, finishing podium in all 3 regionals and winning the second one, but after that they fell off hard, and here's what I think happened. During that fall split, the roster shakeup made it harder for teams to gauge them, allowing them to go farther, but from a viewer's perspective, I see 2 main things that went wrong. The first is not having a coach. In Rocket League or any competition, one of the most valuable things you can have is someone with an outside perspective who is also there specifically to help you. Dignitas never had that until the second to last regional, only seeing mild improvement in the last regional after a steady decline in production. What fuels the fire of not having a coach even more is to no fault of their own, but it's the fact that they're all once players. Scrubkill was one of the best players in the world for a while a couple of years ago. Jorias was high up there, if not the best in 2021, and apparently Jack has taken the reins nowadays. Not having a coach for a team of players who all specialize in the only game mode without teammates? On paper, it's a recipe for disaster. Before everyone starts bitching in the comments, I'm aware that things have been improving since this eyesore of a results page from when Jorias first joined. I just don't think that they've had enough time to develop with their new coach to be able to make a big impact come August. I'm welcoming any team to surprise me, but looking at the competition and their recent woes, I'm not so sure. Endpoint is another team that's hard to gauge, mostly due to some pretty intense consistency issues. One day you'll see them tearing through their competition, as seen by 2 fall regional wins and a couple other high finishes this season, but other times they fall flat, finishing bottom half a lot of the time, making their production very erratic. I honestly can't explain it. At the very least, they have the ability to get hot and go far, unlike the steady decline of Dignitas before they found a coach, so they can make an impact, it's just anyone's bet on what actually happens. Metsonoris has been competing since the beginning of RLCS and has cracked the podium 3 times at World Championships, but has never been able to finish the job. I love the guy and would love to see him finally get his first title, but I don't know if it can happen with this hot and cold squad, especially since their star player Seiko was poached by BDS. Not trying to take anything away from Metza Archie and Relating Wave, they're all great players, but losing a top 10 talent in the world who is still young and has the potential to continue blossoming into something greater, it sucks. Nothing short of it. Win some matches in Dallas, and if you can't go far, start buckling down for the next season because the skill ceiling rises more and more every day. Karmine Corp is a newer organization in the Rocket League scene, and the team they've picked up has proven to be dark horse material, rarely finishing in the bottom half of anything they've participated in, but also rarely being able to win the whole thing. The Spring Major went pretty well for them, and they showed some balls as they were able to reverse sweep G2 and fought off all the pressure to come back and win a Game 7 in overtime when they were on the cusp of being reverse swept themselves against Furia. While they would eventually exit in the lower semifinals against Moist in 5, every single game in that series was decided by 1 goal, so they can certainly keep up with the big boys, they just need to find out what's going to take them over the edge into the elite company of Europe. It is worthy to note that this is their first season playing together, and it's clear that Nolly and Itachi are taking full advantage of their first time on a highly competitive squad, along with Astro continuing the performance pace he was on since the previous iteration of Dignitas back in late 2019. Very excited to see what they can do, and I feel like even if they finish a little lower than they would like in Dallas, this is going to be a great learning experience for the team as a unit, and they can use this experience to come back stronger next season. Go kick some ass. The Moist Boys, Rocket League's newest and greatest bandwagon, although not in a bad way, not at all. Critical's entrance into the Rocket League scene has brought a ton of new, awesome fans into the scene, which is great for the game on its own, but when you're able to pick up one of the hottest rosters on the planet and see them continue to perform incredibly, that's how you build a dedicated fan base right off the bat. This entire team works so well together. Every single one of them can make an incredible save, clip on anyone in the world, break your ankles, and do it all as a team without breaking a sweat, which is their greatest attribute. 3 amazing players take you far, but having the best nerve control on the planet is what takes them over the edge and makes them truly world-class. Their ice in Game 7's and uncanny ability to stay alive despite all the pressure in the world leads to them taking advantage of any mistake on the biggest of stages, and them finishing at least top 4 would probably be the least surprising thing since hearing the words, "Hey, did you hear there was another mass shooting in America?" Good luck and get wet. The final seed in Europe belongs to the other full French squad, Semper. Not gonna lie, it was kind of a grind for Semper to qualify for Worlds, as they beat out Evil Geniuses by just 30 points, although this squad does have one thing to boast, and that is a boatload of experience. Chaussette is the most veteran player of this team, as he's been competing in RLCS since 2015, and is one of the few players to have played SART before coming to Rocket League. Cassio has also been around for a while, his first notable competitive appearance being on Triple Trouble back in 2017. Exotic is the least senior competitor, but he's still been competing since 2018 and participating in RLCS since 2020, playing with Solary for a bit before hopping around and eventually finding his spot here on Semper. The competitive experience is a nice thing to have, and they did finish podium in the third Fall Regional and Fall Major in Sweden, but since those results, they've fallen off and haven't finished any higher than 7/8 in RLCS tournaments since then. They weren't able to qualify for the London Major because of the results they had, but if they were able to hunker down and use the time that they had at their disposal wisely, they could have a fair crack at getting through the group stage, but further than that, and a Cinderella run would be needed. Now that we've gotten the major regions out of the way, let's take a deeper look at the underdogs coming from the rest of the world. Granted, you could make arguments for at least a couple of these teams to come out and win it all. We've seen some insane results from these teams at majors, as seen by these guys. Oceania. Pioneers put the duality of mentality and mental coach importance on display for the entire world to see and learn from during the spring major. All 3 series they played were against incredibly tough opponents, and losing to the champions in the second round of lowers is nothing to be ashamed of, but the first 2 series need to be looked at. First day of the tournament, and you're put up against Space Station, a high momentum team, as well as the only other team attending Worlds with a mental coach. The first 2 games ended 2-1 in favor of Pioneers, one coming with an overtime lasting over 4 minutes. On the cusp of immediately sending Space Station to the lower bracket, the nerves kicked in for Pioneers, and SSG did their usual thing of kicking it into high gear when the series is on the line, and they got reverse swept in a best of 5. Shit happens, and they looked ahead to day 2 for their matchup, and as if someone had it out for them, they had to get through BDS if they wanted to avoid finishing last place and clinch their spot in Worlds. Here's where something even more interesting happens. Pioneers are a talented team. Scrub and Superlocky are great in their own right, helping create a brick wall in net that everyone needs to get past, alongside Banana Head, who has the mechanics and play-driving ability to lead counterattacks and style in the best players in the world. BDS had come off of getting swept by Team Secret on the first day, and many had them winning the entire major. With no mental coach on the team, they were already in their own heads and needed to get something going, but Pioneers would go on to sweep them, and it was not close. They outscored BDS 10-3 in the sweep, and no, I'm not counting the garbage goal by Monkey Moon after Pioneers had literally stopped playing and Monkey Moon's teammates had left the game at the end of Game 3. Pioneers had the confidence to face anyone after the first goal went in, and another thing was highlighted during this series, that being the idea that defense is the best offense, as mentioned by the brick wall statement from earlier. Having nearly all of your best efforts to score be effortlessly thrown aside and shown to not be good enough will shatter anyone's mentality, and all the confidence can be thrown out the window. Every rank of Rocket League sees this mentality shift, and it's no different for the pros when they just can't seem to score. Pioneers barely let anything in net, ruined their opponent's mentals, and used it to their advantage to shatter BDS even more. If they can improve even further on this play style and continue to work with their mental coach, don't be surprised at another shocker come August. And as for every other team, I don't care who you are, study these 2 series long and hard. For those who can resist the pressure and keep their head in the game, any team can beat any other team, and their gameplay will take them as far as possible. When I mentioned that Pioneers had to beat BDS to clinch their spot at Dallas, I left out one crucial detail, and that's how cutthroat competition was between the 3 main OCE teams. As you'll see here, Worlds placements were decided by 40 points in the region, and Pioneers' spring split miracle run just pushed Power out of making it. Besides that, Renegades have the number 1 Oceania seed and have had the same roster since the tail end of Season X. Kami and CJ have been competing for ages, and Fever has built himself up over the last 2 years to create a strong and highly capable Renegades squad. Unlike many teams, they appear to have more distinct roles over a super constant rotation. Fever has a tendency to play more defensively with great goal line saves, CJ loves his chaos, and Kami ends up being the play driver a lot of the time. This interesting playstyle could throw off some teams in Dallas, but I do worry that once teams get a read on that style, they could bow out to a fast EU or NA team. Past that, I can't give a good prediction as to where they'll place, but that's what I love about Rocket League. Parity makes shit interesting. Fury have been a top team in South America for quite a while, and it makes sense why. While Yan is their superstar, he plus Kaio and Card are a well-oiled machine that can work around any defense and find a way to score. If a laser towards the net won't go in, they'll slot a double tap through at any angle, and if that doesn't work, you'll have your ass chased down until you're gone, and the open net is all theirs. They've certainly seen some decent results during the majors, but haven't had their breakthrough into very high finish yet, and you can certainly make an argument for Dallas to be their time, as they did clinch a spot in group stage. In all forms of competition, finishing at good but mediocre positions on the big stage multiple times can be a source of motivation, and if they use that fire they have in themselves, then you'll need to keep an eye out on these guys. If the boys get hot, especially Yan, the entire world could be in for a treat and historic results.
No matter what happens here, especially when Yan shows his pace, that's the moment they begin to stand up. The confetti is about to fall. Yan has stopped South America's jewel in the...
Well, speaking of historic results, a reverse sweep of Falcons in Saudi Arabia and then predictably destroying Guild in the final to take home $500,000 is wild. Massive congratulations to all of them, and it was really nice to see the rest of the team step up behind Yan. It feels like they finally made their aforementioned breakthrough a few days after I wrote all this. The ability to overcome adversity is an essential trait to have, and they just proved that they have it. Now, imagine if they can carry this momentum into Dallas. Often playing second fiddle to their regional rival is Team Secret, the first team to sweep BDS at the Spring Major, and the big thing to pay attention to is their ability to beat anyone to the ball when their confidence is rolling. Seeing all three BDS players get dusted time in and time out was a treat for those cheering for their downfall, and the rest of the world is thankful that Secret were able to expose the cracks in their armor. Their cast contains Knight, a great young prospect fresh off of being eligible to play in RLCS at the beginning of the season, and even though he still has a lot of room to improve, being paired with the goal-scoring talents of Math and Sad makes for a good dark horse candidate to be the top finisher out of South America. While they may not be as flashy as some other teams around, if you simply put the ball in the net more than your opponent, style doesn't matter, and that's a mindset that can take you far on its own. It would certainly be nice to make group stage and beat out your older brother, boys. When looking at the South America standings, you'll see that the club certainly earned their spot at Worlds, with a staunch point difference between them and 4th place. They're a fine group, and Lost has especially shown that he's a very capable player, and recently they've managed to keep it very competitive against their regional teams, taking all 3 series of the last regional against Furia to a Game 7. However, there's a glaring flaw that's holding them back and will continue to hold them back until they improve on it, and that's their air mechanics. Credit where it's due, they know that the ground game is what they're good at, and when they keep the ball grounded, they win games, but when rewatching their games, aerial misses were responsible for a lot of lost possession time, and inferior advanced mechanics were responsible for missed opportunities to score against more skilled opponents. Definitely don't count them out, because if they can stick to playing their game, there's a potential to make some noise, but if they run into a high-flying offense, pun intended, it could be a quick appearance. O1 have some thank you cards to write, as they only barely snuck in off the efforts of Falcons and their success at the Spring Major. That being said, if 3 teams from MENA are going, they earned their spot and even had a decent showing at Gamers 8 on home soil, taking home a cool 95 grand US with them. Unfortunately, they had to run into Guild, having the tournament run of their lives, but they further proved some patterns they have. This group has the ice to finish off opponents when they need to, but oftentimes when they lose and can't get it going, it can get ugly fast. If they show up to Dallas in the form they were in during the 3s games of Gamers 8, some heads could be turned. Mawson is definitely on his game, but I'd like to see a touch more from Ams's Onyx. If they take this extra time they have at home to get a little more work done and fly into Dallas with the right mindset, they're no team to scoff at. Good lord, Falcons are scary. While they are technically from a minor region, having the sheer consistency to win all 9 of your regionals against capable local talent and coming 1 game away from winning the Spring Major deserves high praise. They were able to win with Senzo before their current iteration, and swapping him out for TRK was seamless. They just kept on winning. You have Ahmad, the player who brought MENA up from the ground as a region, the one's god of Ocalden and a young star in TRK. These guys will outpace you, kill you, clip on you, and very few teams have what it takes to stop these guys when they're hot. I'd consider them a top 5 team in the world. If you ask any RLCS fan about which minor team is most likely to win the whole thing, I would be genuinely baffled if anyone didn't say Falcons. All the winning did them a great favor in being the last team in this video to guarantee a spot in group stage, giving them extra rest time as they have the furthest travel distance out of the group stage clinchers. Home field advantage at Gamers 8 certainly gives them some extra rest time, though it probably all balances out in the end. Well, I guess I should address something now that Gamers 8 has ended. What the fuck happened to you guys? They choked, simply put, and now I have to mention something that I initially overlooked as a fluke. If we jump back to the upper semifinals of the Spring Major, you'll see that Falcons came scarily close to getting reverse swept by Space Station, who held them to 1 goal for each of games 4 through 7. Luckily they staved that one off, and I figured it was a one-time thing because SSG are the king of reverse sweeping, but now I'm not so sure. They had a lot going for them, including home soil in the 3-0 series lead, but just couldn't finish them off. They also made a rather baffling decision to choose 2s in Game 6 when they got shut out in the last 2s games against Furia and won the 1s game, and that might have cost them the series. While I love this team and they did go far, they blew it. That's it. They have to clean themselves up, get ready for Dallas, and be wary of their mindset, because if you go into anything of this caliber with a loser's mindset, you're going to lose. No time to be sorry for yourselves. Please, just don't make this a regular occurrence. Veloce have had an interesting history this season, shuffling through a few organizations, including Falcons before they picked up the Sandrock roster, and now they're here. Ranking as the second best MENA team is an amazing accomplishment when you're forced to play against the current Falcons, and it's easy to see why they're up here. Senzo is well established, playing on the Sandrock powerhouse for 2.5 years before being picked up by Veloce a few months ago, and SMW's buttery smooth aerial play is always fun to watch. I do wonder if Veloce went too hard on Twiz after one bad finish in the second spring regional, but Impressive has shown that he's still good to hang with the main squad and can make plays on his own just fine. I feel like Veloce and O1 are closer in point totals than they maybe should be just because of the Falcons' results scaling down everyone else's performance, but with O1 having a decent showing at Gamers 8, it's anyone's guess as to which of the two will finish higher at Dallas. Really hoping they meet each other in the wildcard rounds. That would be fun as hell to watch. We've gone through the more competitive teams in the minor regions, but now we have 4 teams left coming out of the Asia-Pacific and Sub-Saharan Africa regions. From here on out, the ceiling for these teams is probably a random upset and an early exit in the group stage. I can't wait for these last regions to develop into good competition, and even though now isn't quite their time, let's look into the foundations of the future, shall we? If I had to choose one thing that I can speak of highly for Gladiators, it would be their consistency. LCT and Maxu have been a pair the whole season and have only lost a single regional, coming second place in that one anyway, although it hasn't been the same story on the world stage. No team from APAC or SSA has won a series in an RLCS LAN, but Gladiators did win their series against All Mid during the first day of Gamers 8, although if you can debate if that actually counts since OSM stepped in for Abs Crazy. You all know the deal there. But for Gladiators, they're capable, balanced, and consistent, which is a great quality that can steal them a game here and there in Dallas, but they're just not quite on the level of everyone else. I feel like they would be pushed to get better quicker if they had more competition, but that's just me spitballing. Steal a couple of games for the money and enjoy the tournament atmosphere after. Luckily, APAC North had a bit more competition, often coming down to these guys who attended the Fall Major get clapped by Dignitas, Ground Zero, and G2, and Detonator who attended the Winter Major and got clapped by Queso, FaZe, and V1. Between them and Gladiators, APAC as a whole boasted a 1-24 record at RLCS LANs, the only win coming from Detonator beating FaZe in one game by 1 goal in the Winter Major. I do think that this sort of competition is good for Tokyo Verdy as it forces them to be able to keep up with their competition, and in a vacuum I could see a series between them and Gladiators going either way, but it is worthy to note that Sigum's replacing Kanra means that their comms can no longer be in Japanese, a decent disadvantage as Japanese is very difficult to learn as an English speaker and vice versa. Thankfully they haven't let this affect them too much, only seeing a very mild step back, although that could be due to the ping disadvantage from Sigum's having to connect from across the Pacific Ocean. Like Gladiators, they're a fluid unit with talent, with Tenno somehow making things work while playing in the grog, but against everyone else, they'd better play as hard as they can, but they're going to end up spending more time finding a good barbecue spot. SSA is much tougher to judge on a world stage because no team from the region has ever been able to participate in an RLCS LAN until Worlds, which is honestly a shame because I would love to see what they can do at the next level. Bravado is a solid unit who have split regional titles with Pirates since the beginning of winter, and the two groups have been able to push each other further and further in their competitive scene. One thing I noticed with Bravado is that they don't give up easily and are very adaptive. While Daisy is their best player, their ability to work as a team on demos and out-of-nowhere passing plays gives them a variety of ways to put their tallies on the scoreboard, and when one player isn't having a great game, the other two can step up and get things done. I have a couple of general worries for the big stage and more stuff to say, but it'll be much more tied together when talking about these guys, who are Bravado's main competition. Pirates had a dominant fall split taking all 3 regional titles, and they've continued to improve since Bravado went on their mission to close the gap between them. Pirates are more of a brute force, heavy momentum team that will exploit you for every last goal if their train is rolling. Darth and Skillsteel both have solid mechanics, and paired with Snowy... Wait. Alrighty then. As I was saying, Snowy's play-driving ability can bring you a flurry of goals. With that, Pirates also have great ice, with a 6-2 record in Game 7s against Bravado. Give them an inch and they'll take a light year in their region, but my worries come from the travel time, which I've been talking about the whole video, and speed. While it's always an exciting match between these two, with the grand finals of the last regional going to a bracket reset and maximum 14 games, when they have the chance to meet the speed and flashiness of the rest of the world, I have my doubts on what will actually go down. If either of them can contain some of the other teams and keep them grounded, they definitely have a shot at group stage, but as I said, not much past that when the teams have time to study each other's replays with their coaches. I tip my hat to the great competition in SSA and the consistency of APAC, and while Worlds won't be anything insane, you guys are all on good track to have a real shot in a couple of years, and God, I hope that one of you comes out and embarrasses one of the North American and European teams. I live for the upsets. Worlds is going to be an absolute bloodbath, and anything short of it will be disappointing. The entire world is fighting with everything they have, plus a riled up North American crowd for the first World Championship land since Season 8, when there are only half the teams we have attending this time. I'll personally be driving down there to watch the chaos despite Psyonix royally fucking up their ticket releasing process. If anyone wants to go get barbecue after one of the days, my line's open, and I'll film a lot of my time at Worlds to release kind of a vlog style video of what all happened. Oh, final thing, regardless of any commentary in this video, everyone attending is a world-class player and would easily obliterate 99% of people watching this video. Don't be fucking brain dead and leave a stupid comment or blast them on Twitter or anything. I claim zero responsibility for those of you who choose to disregard what I just said and be an idiot anyway. See you all in Dallas.